All right, welcome everybody. It is August 8th, 2021. Allergies, that time of year, no fun, so bear with me on this. This video is going to be called Central Code is a Genuine Conspiracy. Genuine, not the other kind. All right, so my YouTube channel is Eric's Eye Opener. The objective of Eric's Eye Opener is really to enhance our perception of geopolitics, history, economics, and sociology, to understand who rules the world, how they do it, and where they're taking us. All right, so good stuff here. Let's talk about conspiracy theory. That's one of the terms from Central Code. That was actually constructed by the CIA. And yeah, let's get into this a little bit. So first of all, JFK was assassinated. I think most of us realize that at this point, right? And Jim Garrison was a district attorney from New Orleans who was actually convinced of this and that the CIA was responsible, all right? So they came up with a term. Though a lot of people were figuring this out. It wasn't very difficult to figure out. At this time, people seem very smart. But all of this blows over. Applied psychology and behavioral sciences are very, very effective at controlling the masses. All right? So again, not just the CIA, but remember what's behind the CIA, right? We are really controlled by a group of people who monopolize the wealth and control all of us by means of applied psychology, right? And so this is very, very... I don't know, it's nefarious, it's disturbing. There's so many things going on right now. So let's talk about that. In 1962, the Department of Defense and the Joint Chiefs of Staff really constructed a program, and the idea here was to hijack commercial jetliners, to crash them, killing everyone on board, to explode bombs at heavily populated events, and to purvey mass terrorism in the United States, and to blame it all on Cuba, right? And to use that as a pretext to attack Cuba. Shocking, isn't it? Official government documents are available online. They were released after 30 years. JFK turned this down. So you can imagine he would do exactly what you and I would do. He would go, holy cow. He would start to talk about this in his inner circles. So in public, he would start to talk now. He really discussed, this is public record, the secret societies that control the United States and the world. So, of course, as a result of this, JFK wanted to defund the CIA. So it was pretty obvious how this was going to end, right? So the CIA came up with a term, and they constructed two words to create this term, conspiracy theory or conspiracy theorist, right? Conspiracy, a real word. Theory, a word of science, right? The theory of relativity. Yet they attached a stigma to it to make people feel embarrassed. They utilize the media for this, right? And so, yeah, we have to understand how that really works. Everyone feels embarrassed if someone stands up in a public place and says, you're a conspiracy theorist, right? So, yes, Operation Mockingbird was a program also by the CIA in the early 1950s, and it was designed to utilize the media to control everything the American public sees, hears, thinks, and does, right? All of our belief systems. So I remind you guys, those of you who have watched other videos, I talked about Ivy Lee and Eddie Bernays and Walter Lippmann. Ivy Lee, of course, changed the image of John D. Rockefeller because the people back then knew he was supplying both sides in the wars. His family owned Standard Oil. All of these major companies do. The families that own the Federal Reserve instigate the wars. They fund both sides with loans. J.P. Morgan, they all own these banks. And then they supply all sides. But they own all these multinational corporations that supply both sides, all right? So John D. Rockefeller was turned into what we call a philanthropist. I talked about how George Peabody was the first philanthropist. All of this is deceiving. Very mean guy, mean to his family, mean to his employees, cheap with his employees, but gave huge sums of money to public institutions. They invest in things that make them richer and also control the public, right? It's all about mind control, controlling publishing, controlling basically academia. So, yeah, we know that books are written. History is not correct. So, yeah, we're going to get into this a little bit more. So those are a couple of conspiracies. I'm going to get into a couple shortly here that Bill Clinton apologized for, okay? So these are real conspiracies. Operation Mockingbird and Operation Northwoods are real conspiracies, okay? But people are programmed to fear things like this. They don't even want to look at it. They fear and they smear it, right? they attack you, even if you mention it. So this is how this goes now. You can see this with the Democrats. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I mean, I despise both parties because they're the same party. But, they have separate media outlets like CNN and MSNBC and Fox who cater. I mean, we have a dichotomy of ideologies, which is meant to keep us divided, angry, and just, really scared, right? All right, so that being said, I think I want to bring up something that I think is a really kind of an important analogy here. And it's a very old expression. It's a Taoist expression. And it said that you cannot step twice on the same piece of water. So imagine this. The footsteps are the issues, all right? And the water that the footsteps are stepping on is fluid. The motion is fluid. This happens to be our ability, our perception, right, to understand, to actually process what we see in the footsteps, all right, which are the issues. And so this is constantly changing, right? Each moment that passes changes us. And in the interim, between the last time you heard something and the time you hear it again, you have made new associations based on the new experiences that you've had. Okay, so people always like to say, look, I already know that. Well, you don't know it the same way that you know it next time you hear it. So we need to revisit everything all the time, all right? Remember, people don't mind being lost as long as they're not lost alone. This is a tribal thing. That's why they came up with something like a Democratic Party and a Republican Party. These are tribes, right? And they support each other. They really solidify the foundation of their false belief systems by repeating them over and over again with each other. And they have to be true because your friends believe it, right? Mom and dad believed it. Again, this is the tail wags the dog. I talked about this in part one of the distinction between intelligence and the capacity for independent thought. This is something that we really should control more, right? We base our belief system on what we've always done. We base what we've, really what we do as far as habits, right? Whether it's smoking or drinking, things we'd like to change, on what we've always done. I've always done that, right? So we define ourselves by what we've always done rather than being able to make change at will, right? And having command of your life. All right, so that explains quite a few things there, and that's kind of a little bit of a prep. Okay, so now we talked about Bill Clinton apologizing for two of these conspiracies. Just amazing. So first one is the Tuskegee experiment. That took place from 1932 to 1972. This was a group of sharecroppers that were utilized. I think it was, 399 had been infected with syphilis, and 201 was a control group. And of course, some of them were, infused with this affliction, right? That's how it always goes. There are human guinea pig projects all over the world for the United States. I'll get into these. But the Tuskegee experiment, these people were promised that they would get the finest medical care and they would be well taken care of in every way. Of course, this was a big lie. As I said, it ran from 1932 to 1972. Well, in 1943, it was discovered that penicillin would be a viable treatment for syphilis. It was never administered to them. And so Bill Clinton apologized for this. He also apologized for MK Ultra. MK Ultra was a program that kidnapped people off the street, children, adults, and really submitted them to horrible psychological torture, right? They were induced, administered many substances, including psychedelic drugs, and some of them, of course, escaped. They're here today to talk about it. But Bill Clinton apologized for this, quite sincerely. Bill Clinton, he really knows how to act. These are all actors, these presidents. They're merely con artists, and people don't really understand that. We don't get better presidents. We only get worse presidents. Each subsequent president is the worst. They facilitate all this corruption as it expands. All right. So, So there's two programs. I should mention that, look, chemtrails are another thing that are tarnished, and they have these stigmas attached to them by the news, the government, whoever needs to do it, that these are conspiracy theories, right? We had a lot of programs like this, but I'll give you a couple of them as an example. My friend had watched PBS lately and saw one of these. He was very angry to see that our government was actually dumping huge aerosol clouds of pathogens on heavily populated cities, but this is true. And so one of them is Operation DEW, D-E-W. The other one is Operation LAC. Now these also in the 1950s. There are so many, but this is kind of the the start of this period where a lot of these operations, well, a lot of the things have been released now, right? The official government documents. So DEW took place over North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. And again, this dispersal of heavily populated or on heavily populated cities of huge aerosol clouds of pathogens. Same thing with Operation LAC, L-A-C, over Central California, the Pacific Northwest, and Canada. And so, just like, I forgot to mention with MK Ultra that most of these experiments were carried out at hospitals and military bases. They always do these things at military bases. And, I do want to mention Cornelius Rhodes, and I think Rhodes is R-H-O-A-D-E-S. And this was a mad doctor, a military doctor, who was actually injecting Puerto Ricans with cancer cells. He wanted to extinguish them. He talked about them being inferior race animals, so he wanted to eradicate the Puerto Ricans. For this, he received a promotion, right? A number of promotions. So he was putting people in gas chambers. They were exposing them to filling them with mustard gas. And this goes on and on. Bill Clinton was dumping depleted uranium and napalm into the waters off the coast of Puerto Rico in the 1990s. Keep in mind, they have birth defects there like they have of course, all over the Middle East, near Iraq, and all over Iraq. 6 presidents now have attacked Iraq. And of course, we know what happened with Vietnam and Agent Orange and napalm there. So tens of millions of people killed with chemical weapons. 2 million in North Korea, 3.3 million in. They're not all killed with the chemical weapons, but they're all exposed, right? And in Korea, 2 million people. They were all burned to death with napalm, right? 30 major cities. They were targeting, again, small villages after they ran out of major targets. Then they were attacking grain silos and water reservoirs, war crimes, of course, crimes against humanity. And so same thing is true with Dresden, right? February of 1945, and then Tokyo in March of 1945. So, this is stuff that people really don't think about. Napalm, burning people to death with these horrible chemicals. Whatever the reasons, don't need to get into that. These are a few conspiracies, guys. I think most people know about Operation Paperclip, how we actually recruited so many of the evil, doctors and scientists and upper-level authority figures from the Nazi Party. And so, I just want to talk a little bit about the military. I think that's pretty important at this point. A lot of people always say, well, if all these things are true, which they are, of course, we know that they're true. But there are a lot of other things, and people always question them. And they go, well, wouldn't people come forward? Well, we have whistleblowers coming forward all the time. In 1940, a gentleman died by the name of Smedley Butler. He was the most decorated general in U.S. history at the time of his death. He had received the Medal of Honor twice. He was totally against war, a Marine general, and he knew that war was a scam, just like the founding members of the Wobblies Union knew, right? That the United States was a business. Basically, again, instigating the wars, funding both sides with loans, and supplying both sides with the corporations that you own. And so Smedley Butler knew this. He said war is a racket. He said there's only 2 things we should ever fight for. That is our homes and the Bill of Rights. Okay? Kudos to you, Smedley Butler. The guy really did get it, and there were a lot of people like this. Daniel Ellsberg was an Army analyst. Like Snowden, he had access to highly classified documents, right? In 1971, he saw that we were being lied to about the Vietnam War, so he confiscated 7,000 official government documents. He photocopied them. Wow. That must have been a lot of work back then, right? He released them to the New York Times and other outlets. He was charged with conspiracy, theft, and espionage, but he was later released due to the fact that the evidence against him was obtained through the Watergate scandal. All right? Again, people, this should all be a wide awakening. Do your own, your own due diligence here. Do your own research. And so, Daniel Ellsberg Again, very similar to all these people we have now. Chelsea Manning, reality winner. Um, Sorry about the stuffiness. We have Edward Snowden, Julian Assange. We had these great hackers like Jeremy Hammond and Aaron Swartz who supposedly committed suicide in prison. Aaron Swartz did. Jeremy Hammond should be released soon. Okay, so that being said, I have one more here that's very, very important, and that one is Howard Zinn. Howard Zinn was a World War II bombardier pilot. He had figured things out like Smedley Butler and Daniel Ellsberg. He had put the pieces together, right? And he became one of our greatest historians. And he had two quotes that I really like. There is no flag large enough to hide the shame of killing innocent people, right? Or to cover the shame of killing innocent people. And so he also said that dissent is the highest form of patriotism, calling out your government's war crimes and crimes against humanity. This is important, okay? We have so many people now. There are many military people that have come forward. We know we have Veterans for Peace. I'm in Milwaukee. We have Peace Action. They had something last night. It rained here. I didn't go, but it was basically it was not a protest, but basically a get together in a way, showing basically how badly we feel for what happened in Nagasaki and Hiroshima. All right. So, how about Michael Preisner? Michael Preisner has come forward. He's an activist, continues to do so. John Michael Turner and Ethan McCord. There are so many of these whistleblowers that have really come forward to talk about what's going on, right? We had in the Vietnam War, we had people like Seymour Hersh and Rod Ridenour who exposed the My Lai massacre, and that was really a horrible thing. Over 500 people in a village were tortured and killed, raped, tortured, and killed. But this is just one example. There are so many of them, right? And so, I think it's really important that we understand the stigmas that are attached to the Central Code, right? Conspiracy theory is very, very powerful. Anti-vaxxer now is one that we have. We can see what's going on, the control that people are trying to, assume in the government here, and other people assuming control over other people, shaming people just like they do for not voting, right? It's just really, I don't know. It's too sad to think about, how people are so easily coerced into acting in really designated fashions. I'm really plugged up here, so I think I'm going to end this video pretty much. It's just getting hard to handle. But, I think everybody should get an idea what's going on here with regard to conspiracies. I mean, I didn't go through any Latin American policy, but 200,000 killed in Guatemala in 1954. Well, you know what? Let's do a little bit if my nose can hold up here. In 1953, under Eisenhower, we took down Mossadegh in Iran. He was a democratically elected leader. He wanted to nationalize the oil and share the proceeds with the people. We'll never allow that. Keep in mind, the families that own the Federal Reserve, this group that monopolizes the wealth and controls the masses by means of applied psychology, they have a system. They wanted a 1% in every country that controls the industry, and they must be controlled, right? We can control them, and when I say we, it's the bankers. I love my country. Don't anybody get the wrong idea that I don't love the country that I was born in. That's not true at all. And I think even our intelligence, representatives should understand what's going on. Their families are going to be affected by this. All of us will be. But this is really clever cognitive conditioning and mass hypnosis that's really imposed on all of us, more heavily on people that work in those highly classified areas, right? Mossadegh actually wanted to audit the AIOC. They were an Anglo-Iranian oil company that was owned and operated by Great Britain, exploiting the oil of Iran. Of course, they didn't want Russia to get any, or Russia didn't really produce any oil until the 1960s. Most people don't understand where the oil came from, too. I mean, Japan didn't have oil. They did get a bunch out of Manchuria from 1931 to 1937 and up when they were attacking China. But most of the oil from both sides came from Texas. Some of the oil came from British-owned Borneo, and some from what was it, Dutch-owned West Indies and Venezuela. But always, this was John D. Rockefeller. Nobody else had this type of technology. Remember, crude comes in all different forms. They have a very heavy crude in Venezuela. And Venezuela is not at all socialist. More than 70% of the industry there is privately owned, and it's controlled by the United States. The UN has told us now that the United States has starved to death more than 100,000 people there since this virus began, and no medicine is let in. They always say that they're for the people, but of course they're not. And again, they're under pressure from the banks. Same things with the presidents. The presidents are owned and operated by, they're told how to operate, right? And the same thing is true with Congress. I mean, all of these people are bought. There's no question about this. Chris Hedges was talking about this recently. People don't understand the extent of this. It's not just being bought, but it's the fear. You or I would do the same thing if we were in their shoes. You don't realize how powerful these people are until you get into those positions. So, all right, so that's what happened in Iran. Same thing happened with the United Fruit Company in 1954 in Guatemala. People were getting oppressed and subjugated and beaten. They didn't have enough money to put food on the table for their families, so they rose up. The military went there. Well, I should say the military. The CIA trained militants and death squads in Guatemala. That's why we have all this overflow of immigrants now. It's still running from 1954. I mean, there's been constant interference there. We saw this with Salvador Allende in Chile in 1973. He was taken out and replaced with Pinochet. Remember, we don't take out dictators. We take out democratically elected leaders and put dictators in to control these countries. This is again, this is what Paul Warburg talked about when he signed the Federal Reserve Act on December 23rd of 1913 with Woodrow Wilson. You will have a one world government. It's just a question of how it will be arrived at, either by consent or by conquest. Of course, by both, right? A lot of fear is put into the people, a lot of hypnosis here to get people to believe in these, fraudulent wars. And so, three great novelists, George Orwell in 1984, and Aldous Huxley in Brave New World, and Ray Bradbury in Fahrenheit 451 will soon be censored. A lot of this information you won't be able to find. The things I'm telling you about, you won't be able to find them online anymore. Things will just disappear. We'll be entirely controlled. All right. And so that's what's going on now. You can see the freedom is disappearing. All these presidents support the Patriot Act. They all support, NAFTA. They're all against the working class. I've talked about this before. There's 5 things that they all support: expansion of wars, expansion of Wall Street, erosion of civil liberties, destruction of the working class, and pollution, right? Maximizing profits by polluting everything. We see this with fracking. It's not even cost effective. The people subsidize it, the public, and the companies make their money off of it by selling it to other companies. It's unthinkable what's going on. The Latin American policy, all very shocking. Operation Condor, look this one up. More than 60,000 people were tortured and killed. We're talking about everyday people, right? Teachers and students and writers and journalists and artists. This was from 1976 to 1983. Isabel Perón's husband died. He was president. She took over. This was a working class movement. They always call it a socialist or communist movement. Anything that has to do with being for the people, right? And so, all right, people were thrown out of planes and helicopters, and Chile was involved in this as well, right? We saw that Rafael Correa was taken down recently in Ecuador so that they could get to Julian Assange. He was replaced with someone called Lenin Moreno, and Lula da Silva was put in prison under false pretenses. And the United States was, of course, behind that, installing Bolsonaro, burning down the rainforest. By the way, Glenn Greenwald, quite the hero, was actually able to be responsible for getting Lula released from prison, right? And so same thing with Evo Morales. We saw that recently. He wanted to, again, this is all about, Jacobo Arbenz was trying to help the people. He was an aristocrat in 1954. We saw the same thing the same thing was true with Chile. Same thing was true with, it's just everyone that we talked about here, Argentina. But Evo Morales wanted to nationalize the profit from the lithium. Of course, that won't be allowed either, right? And in 2009, we saw Juan Orlando Hernandez took over for Manuel Zelaya, who was ousted by Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Again, death squads created, always taking out a indigenous supporter and replaced with a right-wing dictator. Beta Caceres was killed. Manuel Zelaya was supporting her. She was supporting the indigenous peoples. People, it's bad. And so I don't know what else I can tell you with my nose plugged up like this. I think it's time to sign off. But yes, this is Central Code is a genuine conspiracy, okay? Look all this stuff up. Find out for yourself. Understand what's going on before it's all wiped away. Again, we will be so controlled soon. Our minds will be so controlled, and they will do this. As Aldous Huxley said, at one point they'll incorporate substances into our food, air, and water, and they have been for many, many years to make us more compliant and manageable, right? And really compliant with their agenda, whatever their pursuit is. And ultimately, this is a eugenics program. After they can wipe everybody out for the most part, they can start a eugenics program and start the human race all over again. That may sound good, but come on, guys. This is not. This is an esoteric group of people. It's very, very nefarious. So. Again, my name is Eric. My YouTube channel is Eric's Eye Opener. It's August 8th, 2021. Have a great day. And I'm going to talk about those 5 things that basically I'm going to elaborate on those that all presidents are actually supporting. So we'll get to that in the next video. All right. Take care now. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.